I'm black, so I'm aware. And as we're walking, I start to hear, monkey, monkey. And my friends are kind of like, what is happening? And I already know what's happening.
Hold on real quick. I noticed that only 3% of the people who watch this channel are actually subscribed. Could you do me a favor and hit the subscribe button? It helps the channel tremendously. And the bigger that the channel gets, the better the podcast will get. I appreciate you and enjoy the video. Do you guys ever run into any issues as an interracial couple? Like we talked about it very briefly.
Yeah, we have here and there. I would say, we've traveled the world together.
Yeah.
Traditionally, my culture, I'm Greek. My culture isn't really about it. But my family is amazing. So we don't have any issues in my family. And we have been to Greece many times and we're always welcomed and embraced. I would say the biggest place we feel it is in Australia and have felt it. There is definitely, it's not everywhere, but there's definitely a divide within their own native people. Like the Aboriginal people of Australia are treated very poorly. And there is definitely a divide of their black and white. And so I think that racism is more alive there and prevalent. It's still alive here, but it's not as obvious. It's very obvious there.
I appreciate you saying that. And that's from the inside of your relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are there any things that because of your upbringing, you growing up black, you growing up, you said Greek?
Greek, yeah.
Has there been places where you haven't understood each other?
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
I mean, just any human A and human B, right? Like you're not going to understand each other.
Yes.
And then you add, there's all these different sites of shaping, right? So we're shaped as the human, the man sitting here, the man sitting here, the woman sitting here. We have been shaped by our world. And we're shaped first by our caregivers, then by school and that like little environment outside, our neighborhood, our community we grow up in, and then the culture with which that community exists in and everything that culture is up against and not up against. And so we can't be outside of our shaping. So there is a lot that I will never understand about his world because I didn't grow up in it, right? But I can do my best to learn and learn how that affects his shape and learn how to be with that shape powerfully and vice versa. And so I think that goes for racial differences, but it goes for man, woman. Like there's so much difference around how we grew up as men and how we grew up as women, like different programming, different indoctrination, different shoulds, different have tos. And so it's a game of unpacking all the programming that we came under, whether it's cultural, race, gender, middle class, entrepreneur, hard worker, immigrant family, or, come up in LA and like never going back to the hood that you grew up in with your family. And so all of it matters and all of it shapes us. And if we love somebody, we learn about their shaping.
Yep. And I'll just add, there's a lot she never has to see. And I've pointed it out a few times. Whenever we're anywhere where there's a bunch of white dudes who are drinking and they see her, she doesn't see their reaction to seeing me. But I do because I've come in this beautiful Afro amazing skin suit. I've had to and been blessed to create a certain level of awareness, situational awareness as the minority in this country. And so there have been many times, and even in the YouTube comments, I remember back in the day, we'd get like, she'd get comments on hers like, oh, you're a bottom feeder and things like that. It's like,
and he'd get comments on his, oh yeah, you're a sellout because you're with a white woman. And so we've heard it for sure.
But yeah, culturally, what's interesting about her is she was signed to Murder Inc. And
I have a whole story. The whole world.
They were setting her up to be the next Ashanti in this whole world where she toured with Ja Rule and that whole crew.
Yeah.
And so she already had her own understanding by being immersed in the Murder Inc. crew.
Even where I went to high school, where I graduated high school, I was the minority. So I was the minority, maybe 6 white kids out of 2,000 students. There were more Chinese, there were more Indian, more Hispanic and mostly Black. And so I went to 2 different high schools. The other one was mostly white. So it's just, I had an interesting upbringing and got to experience a lot of different cultures, socioeconomic backgrounds. Like I got to swim in a lot of it and realize humans are humans are humans and we just look different.
Right.
And one of the things, like I've been doing work in Africa since I was 20, nonprofit work, drilling clean water wells, doing sustainable development. And I'm the minority there, right? So I know what it feels like to stand out. I mean, I'm like one of the only white people, me and my partner with our family. We have a whole family in Tanzania. That's our family now. And I'm, one of the only white people there. And I love that culture. And I love learning from that culture and eating the food and experiencing it. And I got to discover that when I was on tour with Murder Inc. And so like I got this whole world opened up to me, traveling Asia and traveling Africa and Europe and all over, that it's like, wow, there's so much more than what we know.
Let me tell you this too. So culturally, right? For her, Santa Claus and Jesus and all of that stuff, it would never even register that those images would be images of self-hatred for people like you and I. And so when we first got together, there were things that I'd say, hey, listen, when we have kids, I don't necessarily want these images. Even when we talk about the tooth fairy and certain things, we're always making sure that they can have color too. And so there's a dance that we've introduced each other to. I can remember watching the election however many years ago when Trump was going, and he said something. We were watching it together, and he said, "They're coming for the middle class." And I said, "See, this is a subtle way. Who's the they? Who's the they that he's speaking about?" And so because she's not racist, because she doesn't have that hatred in her heart, she doesn't even hear the dog whistle of Trump saying, hey, the Black people are coming for you. The Mexicans are going to jump over that wall and kill you. And then what that does culturally when you walk out and you know that people have heard this man spewing this thing that's a little innuendo about who we are. So we educate and support each other so much about being a woman that I have learned, including all the hormones and premenopausal and perimenopausal and all the different things. I'm not a woman. I don't know. Like you and I could walk through a dark alley tonight.
I don't even get in my car in a parking lot during the day without checking the backseat.
Correct.
Like how crazy is that? Because I've actually I have the trauma of someone jumping into my car
Holy
and having
shit.
that happen. So we just see the world differently, right?
I mean, they say privilege is invisible to those who have it, right?
Yes. So, and we all are privileged in some way. And it's just, again, bringing the unconscious to the conscious and becoming aware of that which we are unaware of. It makes us better humans.
Well, it's actually really good to know that in your relationship, you've been receptive to the differences and just willing to open up and learn about each other, So, and your response to it, just saying that like the subtle differences, like we see it, we live it. So sometimes I've had conversations with people who don't see it and they refuse to see it. And they say I'm crazy. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Watch
good
this.
to.
So people, I lived in Louisiana for 8 years, and I went to Southern University, all Black college, and I went to LSU University, Louisiana State University, all white college. And people would say to me, "Hey, you lived in Louisiana for 8 years. How was that?" And I'd say it depends on what skin color you are, right? Depends on what jersey you're wearing, because Louisiana to a white person is the greatest place on the planet.
Not to me. I didn't like it at all.
But Louisiana, to somebody who happens to be Afro-amazing, can be hell on earth because of the divide and how much programming to keep the whites and the blacks separate, and how much fear and hatred is just steeped in the culture. And I love Louisiana. And living there for 8 years, I got to see it as an outsider and then become an insider and go, oh my God, they have the longest desegregation case in U.S. history in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
And when I went there, like you can feel that. You can feel energetically. And I didn't even know the history until he told me, but you can feel energetically that it's a different kind of energy there. You know, you cannot mistake it. We landed and got off the plane. And I'm like, ooh, it is thick here.
I felt that in Louisiana. I felt that in Mississippi.
I've never been to Mississippi, but I would believe it would be the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. I got time for more?
Yeah, a couple more. And shout out to all the people of Louisiana and Mississippi, white, black, whatever you are.
Yeah.
We love you. We see you. We're talking about the
outliers.
The systematic programming and racism that's steeped in all of it.
Yeah, that we can't be outside of. It doesn't necessarily mean all people are that. But it's the same thing with feminism. Doesn't mean feminism's bad, but there are repercussions of it. And there is something that our history as Americans, we are built off of a lot of bad.
Correct. And watch this. Just a quick story. The first time I really got ganged up on by a group of people was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm 21 years old. I'm at the LSU football game, and I'm walking with my friends who all happen to be white. And we're all walking together to the football game. And as we're walking through, everybody's tailgating. And I see all the Confederate flags, but I think not too much of it, but I'm black.
Someone just turned off.
It was that camera. You're good. You can keep talking.
But I'm black, so I'm aware. And as we're walking, I start to hear, monkey, nigger, monkey. And my friends are kind of like, what is happening? And I already know what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey guys, just keep walking. Monkey, tiger bait. And they're drunk and they realize that they have me outnumbered. And so we walk and we keep going. My friends are kind of like thrown off. We get into the stadium and we're in the student section and it is, 50,000 people in there. And again, I'm the one of there's thousands and you can only see my one black face. And we start to see beer cans and things thrown in our direction. Again, my friends are like, what is happening? I'm like, bro, I know what's happening. It's okay to cheer for these black football players.
Right.
But they don't like me being amongst them. And my friends, everybody's scared and all this stuff is coming. I'm scared too. I don't want to get hit with a can. I don't want to get killed. I don't want to get jumped by a bunch of frat boys who now have this liquid courage in them. And that happens so many times out there that I went into a deeper level of hypervigilance where I'm like, yo, it's actually not safe to be here. I went to a frat party. Last one, I went to a frat party. Again, I was trying to be as aware as possible. And I'm walking through, I went to the bathroom. And in these frat houses, they have these pictures of all the different classes. And I'm looking at the pictures, all, good white dudes. And in the middle is this black puppet in each picture. This black doll in the middle of every single one. And I'm like, yo, that's interesting. Then I see the black puppet thing sitting outside. Again, interesting. I say nothing. Then I start to hear them say, the Canadians are here. Right? Oh, the Canadians are here. The Canadians are here. And at some point, I'm like, yo, something's going down. So I asked my friend who's in the frat, I said, yo, what's going on, man? He was like, man, you should probably leave. I'm like, why? He was like, because the Canadian stands for nobody likes Canadians. So the black people are here. Nobody likes black people. And I was like, done.
Wow.
I'm out.
Wow.
Man.
And these are the guys who own the businesses and run the shops and decide who they hire and who they don't hire. For those of you out there, this isn't a podcast about racism, but I just want you guys to understand that this is the type of stuff. These are the type of people who are running.
Yeah.
Right? And running for office.
Amongst us.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, we were even watching a documentary on Las Vegas in the heyday.
Yes.
And they were talking about how all of these, the major casinos brought in the amazing black entertainers of their time. But those same black entertainers that were selling out shows were not allowed to walk through the front door. They were not allowed to stay in the hotel. They were not allowed to swim in the pool. And just that dichotomy of, we'll take you for this, but not for that. We'll accept your entertainment, but not your human, not your whole self. That's an energy we're all still living in. It's what this country was built on. We first are on stolen land. Let's just acknowledge that.
100%.
Right? And then we have stolen people who helped build the backbone of this nation. And if we don't acknowledge that, part of healing trauma is acknowledging and taking responsibility for it. And so I think we are in a time where it's been beautiful because there's been this uprising of like, oh no, it's time. It's time. But there still hasn't been an honest conversation with honest responsibility taken about who we are as Americans, not individuals, but as a nation, as a culture, what it was built and predicated upon. And doesn't mean we're fully that now, but we're swimming in the soup of living in the effects of that cause.
Right.
And so we have to acknowledge it to move past it. We have to acknowledge it to transform it. The only way we transform it is by honest, real conversations. And I think we're yet to really have that. And I'm excited for when that does happen, but it feels like it's hopefully getting closer.
I think in a lot of ways it is getting closer from, platforms like you guys and the conversation with social media and everything. But in a lot of other ways, there's a conscious decision to try to roll it back.
100%. 100%. I mean, you think about a very popular slogan that's out there. It's, make America great again. Well, what exactly does that mean? If we really think about it from a philosophical standpoint, when was it great?
Right.
And what did that greatness require? And who was in power and in charge? And is there an egalitarian space that exists? Or, what does that actually look like? And so I think we have to get bigger than what the media is positioning to us. And actually, it's my number one pet peeve, right? I think we are missing this skill of critical thinking. And I think as a mature society, we get to learn how to put our head on our shoulders and think bigger and see a much wider picture and make choices for ourselves rather than just taking what is given to us. And so I think we get to be in critical thought about a lot right now in politics and the way things are run, in everyday things in social media. All of it requires tuning into our own truth and going, what's really here?
That's real.